Iceland, the country where the existence of elves and ghosts is still a possibility. The country where nature is outerworldly beautiful. The country where adventurous roads meet active volcanoes and new Earth is still being built to one of the youngest landmasses on the planet. This is not just a road trip around an island. It is the adventure of a lifetime. Join my motorcycle ride and discover Iceland Unlimited. Good morning from Iceland. Iceland, on the confines of the Arctic Circle, is a fascinating island. A touching authenticity beats in the hearts of its inhabitants. They know that nature here is uncompromising, so they have no other choice than to remain being humble and to live to the rhythm of their surroundings. On this island, the forces of nature and earth are visible everywhere. Iceland is a volcanic and geologically active island in the North Atlantic Ocean. It sits spanning the Mid-Atlantic Ridge tectonic plate boundary, which separates the Eurasian and North American plates. Geologically speaking, Iceland is one of the youngest landmasses on the planet, because it only started to rise from the North Atlantic seabed about 25 million years ago. Iceland is a product of volcanic eruptions that are still going on today. With roughly 130,000 inhabitants, Reykjavik is home to every third Icelander. The capital city's most well-known landmark is Hallgrímskirkja, and draws inspiration from Iceland's many natural occurring basalt columns. If you arrive in Iceland by air, chances are big that Reykjavik will be the first stop of your journey. At least it was ours. So, this is what Reykjavik is famous for: rye bread ice cream. Interesting? Cheers. Good morning, everyone. We are now at Samskip, which is the place where our bikes should be. So that's very exciting. Picking up the bikes, fingers crossed that they're here. Due to staying a whole month in Iceland, we had shipped our own motorcycles to Reykjavik from mainland Europe, because when we decided to visit Iceland, all ferries had been booked out already, and this was the cheapest option remaining. Adventure in Iceland. We picked up our motorcycles and off we were to really explore Iceland. Guys, welcome to this new adventure. We are back on the road. This trip is a very special one for me, and I think Iceland will be also a very special country. So, welcome to the adventure. One way to get around Iceland that many travelers choose is traveling the popular ring road that is a 1,322 kilometer or 820 miles loop around the island, connecting most bigger towns and also some of the most popular sites. Even though the climate in Iceland can be harsh year-round, the ring road is always kept clear to travel and is the most important infrastructure of the country. In opposite to the very well-maintained ring road, the so-called F-roads in Iceland are unpaved gravel tracks that only open during the summer month and are only accessible in a 4x4 SUV vehicle or maybe a motorcycle. Most F-roads crisscross the mountainous central region of Iceland called the Highlands. The F comes from Fjöll, which means mountain in Icelandic. Our choice was clear from the beginning. We would only ride certain parts of the ring road and try to explore places more off the beaten track. But we didn't get to enjoy the ride on our bikes very long. Number 1, because it was raining, and number 2, because we headed to a ferry to cross a fjord in Iceland's west and on the way to stop at the island Flatey, which was our destination for this night. To reach Flatey Island, you have to board a ferry from either Stykkishólmur or Brandsløkur in the Vestfjords. So this little excursion that we are doing turned out to be a bit more adventurous than we thought. Complicated, because we are going to this little island called Flatey, and there is one hotel, not so much else, and it turned out that cars or / vehicles are forbidden, so we can't take our motorcycles. And now we have to really trust the Icelandic people, because we have to put the keys of our motorcycles in here, leave it here at the ferry. They're gonna drive the motorcycles off at the other side of the fjord, and we will see if it's there when we come there tomorrow with the other ferry that we're gonna take then. Fingers crossed. Located in Breiðafjörður Bay on the northwestern part of Iceland, Flatey is about 2 kilometers long and 1 kilometer wide and is quite flat, almost without any hills. Therefore the name Flatey, which means flat island. Only 2 permanent residents live on the island. The other houses are only for summer stays. Flatey still has a very local and authentic flair, because it literally is far off from all other kind of civilization. Mission successful. 2 keys in this bag. Our motorcycles are here. We just went off this ferry, and now we are first having to find some gas, because afterwards we're gonna go in a gravel road that is, I think, pretty remote. So yeah, first thing gas. The Westfjords are probably some of Iceland's most underrated areas. The common tourist routes take travelers along the big ring road around the country or to the well-known spots mainly on the southern coast, with some detours into the Icelandic highlands. But due to staying nearly a month on Iceland, we brought enough time to also discover the less popular places, like the Westfjords. Isn't this stunning? Iceland. Now we are really ready to explore and to go to all the famous places and also to all the places off the beaten path. Flateyjarbjarg cliffs at Iceland's Westfjords are the westernmost point of Europe, but you can also just explore pretty decent gravel roads and endless fjords
ride along cliffs and over beautifully rugged mountains, and make some stops at famous waterfalls. Wow, it's so beautiful here. I tell you, we really could stop around every corner to admire the beauty of nature, but I guess that would bring us nowhere today. When traveling Iceland, you might want to stop every 2 minutes to take pictures of the jaw-dropping nature surrounding you. But our biggest learning of the first week was, we can't stop at every waterfall, creek, cliff, volcano, or outer-worldly fantastic view, because otherwise we would never reach our destination. But we still managed to stop at least at some. A big issue that we came across already on our first days of traveling was finding accommodation. We had not brought any camping gear due to the cold and rapidly changing weather in Iceland, but finding a place to stay in the evening turned out to be much more difficult than we thought. At the more remote places like the Westfjords, there are simply not that many options, and at the more popular places, there are of course even more tourists. So wherever we went, finding a place to stay was difficult. Many days everything was booked out and we had to ride over 100 kilometers longer than anticipated to find a place to stay. And many days we paid insane prices for better let me show you. Now I show you the biggest room. Yep. That's about it. The view is very nice, but there is not much space. And all of our gear is here and here. Shared bathrooms. We paid $250 for this room, and it was the only one available within a radius of 120 kilometers. So chasing nice and not overpriced rooms quickly became part of our Iceland adventure. From now on, the challenge was finding the most beautiful roads to ride and somewhere to sleep. In order to reach the real north of Iceland, you have to leave the ring road and travel the northern fjords. The Arctic Bow is the name of the remarkable 184-kilometer scenic and historic route along Tröllaskagi, the Troll Peninsula, on the north coast of Iceland, stretching from Varmahlíð in the west to Akureyri in the east. At the heart of narrow fjords in the north of Iceland, beneath towering mountains, lies the country's northernmost town. Siglufjordur, or Siglu, grew up around one of Iceland's best and most picturesque natural harbors. And few Icelandic towns have such a rich historical background. So this here was the most famous town for herring fishing, and we're gonna visit the Herring Museum now, where you can experience how it was back those days. For many years, fishing was the mainstay of the community in Siglufjordur, and it was once the most famous herring town in the world, and the 5th largest community in Iceland. In the 1960s, the big decline of the town started though. The herring left, and so did most of the workers and people. Only in recent years, Siglufjordur has been blooming again. 24 nautical miles from the Arctic, the once isolated fjord is now easy to reach, with newly opened road tunnels connecting it to the rest of the Troll Peninsula Arctic bow. Akureyri, Iceland's second largest town, is only an hour's drive away. Today we are visiting, I think, the first really big tourist hub of our trip, which I think is basically on most Iceland schedules when traveling. And that is the Lake Mývatn and its region. And I'm looking very forward to it because my guess is that there will be great adventures waiting. Mývatn is a region of high geothermal activity. You find sulfur fields, lakes and volcanoes. The Mývatn district lays on the western border of the volcanic zone, which cuts from northeastern Iceland from north to south. All geological formations are quite recent, dating from the Ice Age and post-glacial times.
This here is the so-called endless shower, and maybe I should have a shower. Nice shower.
Mývatn itself is a lake though, which was created by a large basaltic lava eruption only 2,300 years ago. The name of the lake means the Lake of the Midgets, and it comes from the huge number of midgets to be found there in the summer. The lake midget doesn't bite or sting, and they are crucial to the ecosystem of Mývatn. One of the best restaurants in Iceland is situated close to the Mývatn lake. At Fogafjörðs farm, you can dine with a view into the stable, and I can confirm the exceptional quality of the food.
The fish and
The lamb. We will see.
Unbelievable.
You also can stay in their guest house that is supposed to be one of the best accommodations in the area. But with you, I literally mean you guys, because it was of course fully booked when we traveled to Mývatn. Mývatn is not only an attraction itself, but for many travelers it's also a hub to stay a few days and to go on excursions from into the highlands, for example to the unique Askja volcano.
today we are doing a different excursion, not on the motorcycles, but in this crazy car behind me. And we're going to a volcanic crater called Askja, and this here is our first stop to lower the tire pressure, and it's actually an explosive crater that we are in. And back those days it was used for gathering horses here by the farmers.
When embarking on a journey to Iceland, I was 6, nearly 7 months pregnant, and we heard about some challenging water crossings and rough sandy roads on the way to Askja. That's why we decided to not attempt the ride on our own motorcycles, but to hire a guide in a 4x4 car that turned out to be closer to the size of a monster truck than a normal vehicle. After having been riding every day since our arrival, this was a welcome break.
Here you see the rope, and they say drive close to it.
Strong coffee.
Oh my god, that looks very strong.
Meet Birkel, who was our guide for this day, spiced it up with endless Icelandic charm and knowledge, and took us on some really adventurous F-roads.
So we're going up this mountain now. and we're driving on the ridge. And this is a specialty of our guide here, who picked this road just for us, more or less.
The famous Askja caldera in the Dingjufjord Mountains is located on the northern side of the Vatnajökull National Park. Askja is a 50 square kilometer subsidence cauldron formed when a lava chamber just under the surface of the earth emptied in a volcanic eruption and the roof above it collapsed.
We arrived at the Askja crater, actually our destination for today, at least where we wanted to go. From here we will drive back. And behind me you can see a big collapsed crater, which is this big lake. And this here, this surreal blue, that's the Askja crater with sulfur water. That's the reason for the color.
The background of the amazing Askja view is Öskjuvatn Lake, which has an area of 11 square kilometers and with 270 meters depth is one of the deepest lakes in the country. The next days of riding took us further east, to be precise to some of the most eastern fjords of Iceland.
So this road that we are taking here, it's absolutely beautiful and actually easy to ride. I spotted it yesterday and it turned out that this road is the old ring road. It's all gravel and I guess a few years ago the ring road went through here, but then they built the new asphalt ring road, and that's why nobody rides this road anymore, even though it's absolutely beautiful here between all these mountains and rocks and kind of like black volcanic sand. Now we arrived at the east coast and we're gonna go over there, and I think there the gravel road will start, and the gravel road takes us along the coast but as well over a mountain. So very curious about this ride.
Before our journey we had heard a lot about the West Fjords because of them being more remote and not as highly frequented by tourists. And we had heard a lot about the South with its main tourist spots, scenic F-roads and beautiful nature. What we indeed had not heard so much about was Iceland's East. We are going to a place now where we hopefully will see some puffins, and it's this very famous birds that are kind of iconic for Iceland. So they are actually a must-see, and I hope we will be lucky because I actually don't really know if it's still nesting season. I only know that the place that we are going to is supposed to be one of the best ones to see the little puffins. One of the best and easiest reachable places in all of Iceland to watch the famous puffins is on the East Fjords. Hafnarholmi in Borgarfjörður Eystri offers perfect facilities to get close to the birds without disturbing them or damaging their burrows. There is a shelter and wooden platforms that allows you to get so close to the little fun guys that you can even see their poop that is all over the place. Around 10,000 pairs of puffins are said to nest here from mid-April to mid-August. So we're going into Mjørfjordur now. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, probably not, but it's a one-way road, so we have to ride in and back the same way. And actually we have already seen a lot of fjords, so we will see if this one is really worth it. But I think the road here is already a great start, and like always I'm curious.
Riding into this fjord so far is absolutely stunning. Crazy beautiful views here. Here along the fjords are all these little sites or historic things like this old ship here that was stranded here. And yeah, so you as well have some things to look at besides of the stunning nature.
It turned out that Njarðvíkurfjörður was not very busy and actually not that much a tourist attraction at all. But the mountains, the calmness of nature, and the ride right along the water made it one of our favorite rides in Iceland. It doesn't always need to be the big names and most breathtaking sights that impress you the most when traveling. So far we had not ridden much of the ring road yet. We mainly had traveled a few kilometers on it before turning into another detour to explore more. That was about to change now. South of the East Fjords, the ring road starts to run pretty much along the coast. And with the Vatnajökull glacier inland that nearly stretches all the way to the southern coastal road, there are also no inland connections that you could take instead. Now we are starting to approach the part of Iceland that is Instagram famous. I know, that sounds terrible, but I'm actually looking forward to these parts too, because so far I didn't have much a clue about the places we went to, but all of the sites that we're gonna see the next days are kind of very present in my memory from social media. So I'm really curious if they are as beautiful as expected. And I mean, mostly you have these things on your to-do list because at least some of them are really worth to be seen. Even though I really prefer the places a bit more off the beaten track that might not be as picturesque, there is a reason why some places are photographed a lot. And Vestrahorn Mountain and Stokksnes Beach is one of them. Vestrahorn Mountain and Stokksnes Beach is also one of the most photographed places in Iceland. The area was always popular though. It was one of the first settlements in Iceland by the people of Ireland and Norway. And in the 800s the Vikings settled here. Visiting Iceland also means being prepared for the ever-changing weather. Until this point we had been extremely lucky with the decent summer temperatures, but right when we hit some of Iceland's most famous scenery, we got a taste of the changing Icelandic weather.
Today we're doing some of the biggest sites here in Iceland, and as for most famous sites, one of them you can see behind me. Unfortunately, it's really raining. So I guess we will skip some of the waterfalls that I wanted to visit. But I'm a bit sad that I can't show you the beauty of these places, because I'm guessing they look 10 times more pretty in sunshine.
The constantly changing Jökulsárlón is a glacial lagoon where blue, white, turquoise-streaked 1,000-year-old icebergs chunks float on the water. The lagoon opens toward the sea and contains a mixture of salt and fresh water, giving it a unique blue-green color. The mystical lagoon covers an area of about 18 square kilometers and has provided a backdrop for many major feature films and programs, including Batman Begins, 2 James Bond movies and Game of Thrones. Wow, this weather is so bad today, and I'm actually a bit sad because the Jökulsárlón Glacier Lagoon actually has been on my bucket list forever, and I've seen so many pictures of it. And I'm not complaining because so far we really had very good weather, but it's so important under which circumstances you get to see things. So for me now, Jökulsárlón was kind of nice to see, but felt also like very touristic place. And I don't know, would probably not be the place in Iceland I would recommend to visit before all others. But I'm very sure that can be super magical with the right weather and maybe not so many people around, so these circumstances are really important, and I feel like we probably got the worst circumstances to see this site. But it was nice to see anyways. That's why my motto is always make your own experiences and don't just follow to-do and places to visit lists blindly. The real magic often happens when you expect it the least. But unfortunately, it also didn't happen at our next stop, because everything I could think about was not getting a wet neck. So I'm walking along now this path here to see the glacier. I'm completely exhausted. I can't take off my helmet because it's raining so much. I think if I take off the helmet, it's just gonna be, my head is gonna be all wet. Fjalsárlón is another glacial lagoon like Jökulsárlón, located on the southern end of Vatnajökull Glacier. With the many hundreds of icebergs that float atop the lagoon's surface, Fjalsárlón is considered to be a strong second to the nearby and more famous Jökulsárlón glacial lagoon. Though smaller than its neighbor, it is less known, thus less crowded with other tourists. Which doesn't mean that it's a place off the beaten track. But from the little glimpse I got between the rain and fog, I actually think I like the views even better due to the outlet glacier Fjalsjökull, originating from Vatnajökull, being so majestically visible in the background. Close to Vík, the southernmost village in Iceland and a perfect hub to explore Iceland if you only have a few days, we called it a day and cancelled the visit of several waterfalls we had planned to see on the way. But I guess this is part of traveling Iceland too. If the weather is bad, you can always tell yourself that at least you have a reason to come back because you didn't visit everything yet. The Black Beach at Vík is probably one of the most famous on Earth. Its stretch of black basalt sand is one of the wettest places in Iceland. According to some Icelandic stories, the sea stags are former trolls who try to drag their boats out to sea only to be caught by the rising dawn. More contemporary legends tell the story of a husband who found his wife taken by the two trolls, frozen at night. There is no landmass between here and the Antarctic, and the Atlantic waves can attack with full force, so it's not a place to go for a lovely swim. And I tried to be super careful and keep the distance, but even I underestimated the reach of the waves. Like many travelers, I'm used to get out of my way and embrace hours or even days of traveling to get to a place I want to go to. But I can also appreciate a shorter detour, especially if it takes you to some of the most breathtaking roads of the country, without even struggling too much. That's definitely part of the great experience when traveling Iceland south. Wow, this road here is absolutely surreal. This dark brown, nearly black earth and the green moss. It could be a computer rendering, but guys, it's nature, it's real earth. And I always think it's so crazy wild that places beautiful like this exist in reality. Wow.
That was a nice one.
Southern Iceland is full of attractions, like the still active geyser, the majestic waterfall Gullfoss, or hot springs to indulge in. But another change of weather in the forecast made our stay shorter than planned because we had still a much bigger to-do on our list. That's our lovely little pond here. This is the life, people. So nice. We did not only want to circumnavigate Iceland, but we also wanted to take at least one of the roads across the country. There are only two proper connections that lead all the way across Iceland from south to north: Route 35 and Route F26, which is supposed to be the slightly more difficult one. Given the fact that I was pretty pregnant at that point of the journey and barely could get my leg over the seat of my beloved motorcycle because my pants were way too tight, we decided for the more easy version. And so we took off at 5 a.m. to avoid the rain in the afternoon. This road is really very easy. It's like a gravel highway, but I still think the views are super nice. So happy that we went so early, because my guess is that this road probably can get quite busy during the day, because it's a nice ride and I guess as well easy to ride, so that will attract many people. So I just got to go follow here Walter from Austria. World is very small. How do you like Iceland?
Oh, it's wonderful. It's really great here.
And he had just a dip into the warm springs here.
Yes, it's amazing. It's 80 degrees, 10 to 100 degrees. You must look where you see it in the hot pot. And it's really hot. It's really fine.
I think we are too lazy to do it, but I will show you some videos of this. It took us much shorter than expected to ride Road 35 because of the excellent surface of the road, and the next day we actually found ourselves again in Reykjavik. But not to say goodbye to Iceland. When we finished Route 35, we spontaneously had decided for a change of vehicle. Today is the first day of a new adventure. As you can see, we're not on motorcycles today, we are in a car. And we will drive some of the roads that we couldn't drive with motorcycles, because there are some of these F roads here in the highlands that just have too high water crossings, so you're not able to drive them with a motorcycle, and we still want to see them. So stay tuned. The famous F roads were not only nearly impassable at our time of traveling with motorcycles due to the deep water crossings, but anyways too challenging for my stage of pregnancy. It's very windy today, and behind me you can see one of the, I think, most famous national parks of Iceland, which is this. And it's part of the so-called Golden Circle, the most driven route that tourists normally do. We didn't do it so far, but now we had a short stop here. It's very early, so there were only 2 people besides of us, and now we continue. We had, by the way, already visited some of the biggest sites of the Golden Circle, like the Geysir and the waterfall Gullfoss. The Golden Circle is about 250 kilometers long and the most famous scenic route in Iceland. It can be done within a day's drive from Reykjavik. But we definitely were on another mission. We wanted to do some more of the legendary, adventurous and challenging Icelandic F-roads.
So there are actually two ways that you can go to Landmannalaugar, where we're going to see the mountains and hike. And one way is supposed to be pretty easy and you can even do it with a motorcycle. And the other way that we are taking now is supposed to be a bit more bumpy and difficult and has as well some little water crossings. And we of course decided for that one, which is actually shorter, but hey, it's much longer than the good road. It's really nice so far, a very moon-like landscape. But the road is much more busy than we actually thought. There are quite some other people driving here, and as well these bigger off-road buses that bring their tourists through here.
Landmannalaugar, or the People's Pools, is a unique area in the heart of Iceland's southern highlands. Throughout the summer, it is one of the most popular places for hiking, either for an hour, over a day, or several. The dramatic region can be found nestled beside the raven black Laugaran lava field, and Landmannalaugar itself is made up of rhyolite mountains, a rock type that creates a full spectrum of amazing colors. Historically, the region is best known for its natural geothermal baths, hence its name, the People's Pools.
Hiking done, and we're taking off from Landmannalaugar, and we're going south now, which is the route 208 south, which is supposed to have a lot of water crossings. That's why we didn't want to do it with a motorcycle, but have this car now. So we will see.
Route F208 is also said to be one of Iceland's most beautiful F-roads. With loose gravel, river crossings and steep cliffside edges, the F208 is definitely a spectacular ride, only accessible by 4x4 though.
So we not only had an absolutely stunning day today, but we as well were super lucky because we just looked for accommodation like an hour ago, and we found this place here. It's called Magma Hotels. It's super beautiful, and they of course only had a room because they got a cancellation. So we're super lucky, and this is a very nice end for a very nice day.
The hotel turned out to be the perfect place for the next leg of our journey, a drive to the Lucky Craters. The Lucky Craters are a geologically beautiful and amazing remote place in the Icelandic highlands. Climbing Mount Lucky and seeing the remnants of the 250-year-old eruption is an unforgettable experience. This big eruption indeed even changed European history. The system erupted violently over an 8-month period between June 1783 and February 1784. It poured out an estimate 42 billion tons of basalt lava and clouds of poisonous hydrofluoric acid and sulfur dioxide compounds that contaminate the soil. This led to the death of over 50% of Iceland's livestock population and the destruction of the vast majority of all crops. The following famine killed approximately a quarter of the island's human population. The Lucky eruption and its aftermath also caused a drop in global temperatures due to the 120 million tons of sulfur dioxide that were spewed into the northern hemisphere. This caused crop failures in Europe and probably even droughts in North Africa and India.
So we just finished our route from the Lucky craters and we're going to the next route now that we actually, I don't know, we were thinking about doing it today, tomorrow.
On the first part of F210, we met another traveler who told us to go see Axlarfoss waterfall on the way, which is about a kilometer from the main road. The journey quickly took us to some of the most stunning landscapes we had seen on our whole Iceland trip. F210 definitely offered some of the most adventurous water crossings of this trip. At one point, F210 is not even a road no more, but is a river you drive in. Given the fact that we were traveling so late in the afternoon, we only met a few cars in the beginning and afterwards had 210 all to ourselves. And yes, this turned out to be the magical atmosphere I was talking about before. If you are missing out on traveling on F210, you, in my opinion, are missing out on the most beautiful part of Iceland.
We just got the news that a volcano here on Iceland erupted. So we're thinking about going back to Reykjavik more quick, because maybe we can watch this volcano erupting. It's very exciting. We as well felt a lot of earthquakes in the days before already. So yeah.
Some of you guys might wonder what happened to the erupted volcano I talked about in the video. One day before leaving Iceland, I went on a crazy adventurous night hike to see New Earth being built. And yes, this was one of the most majestic things I have ever witnessed in my life. But there are not always active volcanoes to be seen in Iceland, so I already made a separate video of the eruption here on my channel that you can watch if you are interested. Guys, can you believe it? This is the last ride. We're riding to the harbor, to the cargo terminal of the harbor, where we will drop our motorcycles. And that was it. And I think it was such an incredible, beautiful, amazing, crazy journey. Thank you, Iceland. You were just great. Traveling Iceland taught me that there exists nature on Earth that is impossible to describe in words. It taught me that being rough and soft at the same time is very possible. And it taught me that sometimes it can be smart to book hotel rooms in advance. Here's to another unforgettable, jaw-dropping journey. Guys, I'm back on Got2Go, and what a country Iceland is. Let me know if you like this kickoff overview episode of the trip, and leave a comment if you will be part of the virtual Got2Go Iceland travel crew. Next Thursday, we will dig deeper into my Iceland experiences, introducing you properly to my arrival in Iceland, picking up the motorcycles, riding close to volcanoes, and the beautiful Flatey Island. Like always, give this video a thumbs up and tune in next Thursday when it's time for Got2Go.